Hello, everybody. Happy this day, which is our new word for the day that comes before that day. It's almost the weekend, but who cares? Because every day is the same in this time. I am Jenny Guy. I'm the Director of Marketing for Mediavine, and this is another episode of our special State of the Vine live series coverage, where we cover the current state of the industry, programmatic advertising, Mediavine products, and whatever else we feel like talking about. For those of you out there who are keeping track of things like dates and times still, which good for you. Way to go. Way to be productive. It is Thursday, April 30th, which means that tomorrow, I don't know if you know this, it's gonna be May. And I personally am quite excited to see the quarantine versions of that Justin Timberlake meme that has been going on for I don't know how many years, but I'm gonna have that song caught in my head for the next, I don't know, month. What are you excited about today or tomorrow? Post in the comments. Tell us hi, where you're watching from. Some of you already have. Hello from Australia. Yay. Amber Brace Girl said, long-time listener, first-time caller from San Antonio. Awesome. Hello from the Netherlands. Yay. This is awesome. That's great, guys. Speaking of us, there would be no us without my frequent guest, Mediavine co-founder, CEO, and boy band karaoke master, Eric Hochberger. Hello, Eric.
I figured that was coming when you did the might be May. All right. Yeah, no, I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good. I want to give everyone a little bit of a backstory on why you are the boy band karaoke master. If anyone was with us in Austin at our conference in Austin in November, Eric gave a pretty rousing, was it I Want It That Way?
I think so. It was definitely some Backstreet Boys. Justin Timberlake was in sync, right?
Justin Timberlake was in sync,
okay.
Right,
yeah.
Right.
So
they
not
all
him.
faded into obscurity. Yeah, you did Backstreet Boys. I Want It That Way. It was pretty amazing. So guys, if you have questions for Eric about your ads, your earnings, SEO, Mediavine products, whatever, hit us up. We're here for that. I also wanted to say and share that the Mediavine team is staying motivated and sane this week with a Spirit Week. We have had Crazy Hat Hair Day. We've had Fancy Elegant Day. Today is Tiger King Day. And we just had a meeting with all of our team, which we saw some pretty incredible costumes. But we were going to show, but we've got, you can see people in their teal gear. It's pretty great. Oh, Nicole just said she has video from Austin.
Oh, karaoke. no. It's always rule number one when I do karaoke, no video. How does?
Sorry. I'm
never in front of Nicole, I know.
She offered you were in front of the wrong people. Okay. So that's what's going on, guys. If you have questions, feel free to post them. We have so much to talk about today. We've got ad tech, we've got products, we've got initiatives, we've got more to discuss here, but I want to start with addressing the giant elephant in the room, Eric, as we've been discussing for weeks. This global pandemic is tanking the economy, which has a direct impact on everything we do and provide at Mediavine, which starts with our ad partners, how they buy ads, bid on sites, all that stuff, which impacts our publishers' earnings. Can you give a little quick update on what's going on in the industry? That would be great.
Yeah, so I think one positive that we've seen is at least things have kind of settled out now. We're no longer seeing a decrease in spend, and we're starting to see slowly some advertisers come back to life. So I think we're hopefully at the bottom of this and we're on our way back up. So that is one positive, but there's definitely some negative as a result of the decreased spend. We've heard from a lot of the ad partners we work with that they're doing rounds of layoffs. Some companies were assuming and are delaying payment terms and all sorts of issues that are happening as kind of a result of the decreased amount of spend, which means obviously lower revenue for a lot of these companies.
Which yesterday, actually, we had some other full-service ad management providers that they started publicizing about some guarantees that we saw some blog posts. We saw some different things coming out from a couple of other full-service ad management providers, which, I mean, I know obviously I'm a Mediavine fan, but I was personally reminded of Tommy Boy. He talks about taking a crap in the box and slapping the guarantee on it. Anyway, regardless, we have been working on a new initiative for weeks that we were planning to announce today. It's called BidShield, and it's a way to make sure that our publishers are protected against the potential folding of these ad partners. And we're still going to talk about it today. But first, I want to hear from you, Eric, about paying our publishers and clawbacks and everything that we've always done and always will do here at Mediavine, because that's what we do as a full-service ad management provider. So please talk about us.
Yeah, no. So first off, as us, I think it's important to note that we are independently owned. And always have been. We've never sold, we've never raised capital. So since Mediavine's history, we've had to make sure that we are financially sound, and that's been since 2004. So that means every year you basically have to be profitable if you don't have outside money. So everything has been run very responsibly. I don't know how else to say it. You have to
frugally.
Frugally, right? You have to run with that mindset. So I know that I want to say that first off, a guarantee is only as good as the company making the guarantee. I think that's the Tommy Boy joke he's making here. It doesn't matter. We do guarantee it, right? We have a contract with you. That's what a contract is. We guarantee we're going to make our payment. I can tell you we have a guarantee right now. Hi, we have a guarantee, but it doesn't matter. It's whether you trust in Mediavine and whether you trust in our financial decisions as a company. And I think that's the most important thing. And I think a lot of what BidShield is which we'll talk about, is something more than just a guarantee. It's something that should actually make you feel like, okay, I'm going to get paid. Because when Mode Media went under, they also had contracts with their publishers. Their publishers thought they were going to get paid until that very last moment. We feel the same way when we're working with ad partners that tell us we're going to get paid until the last moment. They're still buying impressions when they're not going to pay us ultimately. And that's happened now, I think, 5 times in the last 5 years in Mediavine's history. We've had YieldBot, we've had Seismic go under, we've had Defy Media, we've had just recently Ignition One. There's so many I can't even remember all of their names. And every single time Mediavine has absorbed that and has never passed it on to our publishers. That is the Mediavine guarantee. We have the agreements or the arrangements with these companies. We're collecting the money. We've always eaten it out of our side of things and have never come to our publishers. We have been doing that now for 5 years. So hopefully our guarantee speaks for itself. But yeah, that's kind of my take on guarantees.
The other reason that you know so much about what's going on in the industry is because we've always told you as Mediavine. A lot of other companies, it's really not clear what's happening in the industry as a whole. We don't know. And you know your earnings because it's in your dashboard explicitly what you're earning. And then if there's a talk to us about discrepancies, like people know. And we're going to talk more about our dashboard, which is undergoing a huge change. And we're going to talk more about that in a second. But why have we always been so transparent about our earnings here? Why is that a thing?
So I think what's really important here at Mediavine is that we pay out of what our ad server reports to our publishers. And so there's these things called discrepancies. And we've been doing this since the beginning. Discrepancy is our ad server reports an amount because our ad server assumes the second we start to render an ad, we're going to get paid on it. The reality is we don't get paid on that ad until the third party sees that their ad rendered. So it's not us that they're not taking our word for it. They want their own word for whether their ad served. They don't trust our guarantee, apparently. So
she's taking a crap in a box, Eric.
Exactly. So that's basically what ends up causing a discrepancy. Our ad server said it reported, their ad server did not. They bill off of ultimately their ad server. At Mediavine, since our beginning, we have always eaten discrepancies out of our side. We've always done that. That's been for 5 years now. And the reason why is, again, you guys don't run the ad server. You trust in us to run the ad server. It's our responsibility to manage things like discrepancies. It's the same thing how we've always felt about it's our responsibility to manage when one of these partners has a bankruptcy or we have what's called a clawback or some reason why we don't ultimately get paid. It's always been Mediavine's responsibility. We've always taken that on our shoulders.
And the reason why that happened that way is because you guys were website owners who were getting screwed repeatedly by these discrepancies and clawbacks.
Right. Prior to Mediavine entering the industry, this was not standard behavior. The way you would always get paid is you would have reconciliation at the end of the month. So we would always have a reporting dashboard for our previous agency. We would see, okay, you're making this amount of money. They always say at the bottom, this is only an estimate. And then they would do reconciliation. They would remove the money that you thought you earned when they get told by their third parties, oh, we're not going to pay you on these impressions. They just remove them. And then you would always notice your check was always smaller than what the reporting was. And Mediavine, we were the first company to start eating discrepancies and not passing that on to our publishers. And now it's kind of become, I think, a little more standard, especially amongst full service management companies. But that was a Mediavine original.
And we actually have a blog post by co-founder Steve Marcy that we just pushed live. It's talking a lot about that Mediavine guarantee, which we are going to be putting on our website as well soon. So that is all going right there in the comments. Read it. for more information on that. We have a couple comments here. Morgan Smith McBride wants to know if you're in your office or do you actually have a teal room in your house? And then please answer that. Yes, we need to know.
Yeah, no, I want to make sure this is being recorded, so I might be violating a stay-at-home order. I actually drive to my office that is 5 minutes away. I'm the only one in it right now. I would never have done this to my own wall, or I should say, my wife would never allow me to do this to one of our walls. I probably would have.
I think you would have.
Yeah, exactly.
And then Dennis Lilly, Chef D said, yeah, I got a recruitment letter from another company today promising higher guaranteed rates. And he said the company, I'm not going to say it because we're not going to throw slop here, but he said, I told them they'd have to pry my cold, dead hands off my Mediavine dashboard. So there's that from Chef Dennis. And Sherry Smotherman Short just said, I love the transparency. We do too. That's why it happened. And that's why I joined Mediavine, because it was a different way of doing business 3 or 4 years ago. We saw this was different. But here's where we kind of get down to brass tacks. As we said, stating that you're going to pay is one thing. Saying it over and over again, it's in our contract. It's always been. This isn't new. And what the other full service ad management providers are putting out there is also not new. It's in their contract too. It always has been. This isn't new. But the issue is when you start talking about these huge partners shuttering, how can we account for that? Because at some point it's going to become, we can eat a lot of those costs, but that's not possible always. So that's where BidShield comes in. Let's talk about BidShield. Let's talk about what we've been working on for weeks, please.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I think as alluded to also in that blog post that we keep talking about is that we operate on a lower margin than our competitor. So that competitor takes more money from publishers and they want to use the money from publishers to pay in case one of these defaults happen. We'd rather give our publishers more money. That's why we have revenue shares up to 90%. So yes, we do have technically lower margins than them, but that's no cause for concern. We know how to run a proper business. And if you know how to run a proper business, you can have lower margins and it doesn't mean you're going to run into trouble, because we want to solve this with technology. Why should this be paid for out of publishers' pockets when it can be paid for out of the pockets of the bad actors? That's what BidShield's about. If we think that a partner is going to be a risk factor, we know about this. We have an amazing history on these partners. We have an incredible director of business intelligence Cynthia, who would talk your ear off on how she can figure out whether a partner is a risk factor or not. That depends on the advertisers, all sorts of factors that go in to this algorithm that I can't reveal, because unfortunately then it could be gamed by the bad actors. But the idea is we're going to basically calculate the risk factor in real time before each bid of how likely we are to get paid. And that's what BidShield's about. We want to figure out, are we going to get paid? And then ultimately, will our publisher get paid for that impression? And BidShield is going to say yes or no. And it's going to try to shield our publishers. And you may have noticed us using this word for the last 3 lives, shielding, because BidShield is already live. It's already been protecting our publishers' assets, I think, for a week or 2 now. And so there's already, basically what ends up happening is, again, a bid comes in real time. We figure out, is this going to be risky? If it's risky, we'd rather send that winning ad to a less risky partner. So we know Google, for example, is always going to pay. So wouldn't we rather Google win the bid than, let's say, shady partner B? And you may be wondering why we even allowed shady partner B into the auction. That's because their name is not Shady Partner. They didn't approach us with the name Shady Partner LLC. They go by reputable names, but you don't know until the last minute when a partner starts to make bad business decisions. And that's what we're trying to mitigate against. And guess what? They owe us several months of payment, so we can't just shut them off overnight anyway. So what we do instead is we're shielding. We're going to use technology to figure out how likely a partner is to pay and only allow that bids into the auction if we think we're going to get paid. And if not, we're going to put up a little bit of a shield, and we're going to take that money, we're going to put it into a pool. So basically, if we think they weren't going to win and they won, we're going to adjust down their bid. That extra money goes into a pool. This is less than 1% of publisher revenue. It goes into a pool, and then at the end of 6 months, after we got paid, there's been no callbacks, we get to disperse that money to our publishers. So you can think of it like insurance, but insurance where you get the premium back. So like insurance that we wish we all had. Nobody actually gets their car insurance premium back if you didn't get into an accident. We're giving it back.
So that is going to sit there. That's already been happening. And basically, it's almost like odds to pay is kind of the way I've been thinking about it. So like we have all these ad partners over here, and the odds that Google is going to pay are extremely high. So they
Right.
they get a great rating. But the odds that, as you said, shady partner B are going to pay, not so high. So they're having to pay a higher amount for the same ad impression.
That's actually the better way to look at it. Yeah, that's perfect. So if Google is willing to pay $1 for an impression, maybe we'd give that impression to the same dollar to, I don't know, a good name like Verizon that and that we work with. There's certain companies that are like publicly traded you may not be worried about because you can actually look up their financials. And then there's privately held companies that you can't. So for that same impression, they'll have to pay $1.01 in order to win it. They have to pay more money.
And I have to explain this to myself in this way.
Yeah,
I'm sure you already understand it. So the same dollar is going to the publisher no matter what. The publisher is getting the same amount per ad impression, but that extra dollar that shady company B is paying, or that extra 1 cent, is going off somewhere else, right?
Exactly. So that's that risk factor that we figured out. Okay, that $1 isn't as guaranteed from shady partner as it is from Google. So we made them bid $1.01 instead of $1. You only got paid $1 because that's all they bid into the auction was $1, not the $1.01. But we're going to end up getting paid $1.01 if they end up paying us. And that's that money, that extra penny, goes into the bid pool. And that bid pool is being tracked of who earned how much into the bid pool. And then you get paid back that money in 6 months after we've been paid. And there's no reason to be worried.
But the reason to do this, especially now, is because we don't know who could crater in this time with everything so volatile, right? So we're trying to hedge our bets here. We're trying to make sure that a company that we don't know could be not so great goes under, and we're left holding the bag. And the point is, obviously, guys, like, no crap, we don't want to go out of business as Mediavine. Like, we have jobs. That's not what we want. But it's also very important to us that we don't go out of business for our 6,600 publishers who are counting on us to be paid. So if we don't have this protective layer, we run the risk of potentially going under ourselves. So we're not at risk. We're just saying we're adding an extra layer. Correct, Eric? Is that right?
Right. No. Yeah. I want to make that very clear. Mediavine is not at risk. We're not doing this because we're at risk. This is the best practice in order to do this. You should be rewarding the players that are good actors and that pay you every time, on time. You should not be rewarding the partners that are maybe artificially bidding when they know they're not financially sound. So for example, one of the things that BidShield is going to do is it's going to push more money towards names like Google, Verizon, AT&T, a lot of big name companies we work with that none of us are worried about going anywhere. We should want them to win more bids in this time when we're not sure who's going to last. So BidShield is actually great technology, not just for the fact that it will shield us from the partners via the pool, but it's also getting the double advantage of now it's going to push more of the money towards faster, better paying partners.
Okay, so all this stuff is in the blog post for BidShield. We have a really rad new logo that our senior graphic designer came up with, Susanna. It's all going to be in there. So we have 2 blog posts, one from Eric talking about BidShield that is a little bit wordy, but that's okay. We just explained it. If you need to go back, and we're gonna email some of these out to you guys so you all have them, all the blog posts, so you understand what's going on. It's important for you guys to understand. And I make Eric explain it real slow to me so that if I understand it, then hopefully you guys can too. Okay, so we've got some comments here. We have—
I'll do one last quick BidShield thing because I do want to stress, besides it being less than 1% of publisher income, it's actually going to lead to our publishers making more money because it's going to allow us, during a crazy time when most people would not be signing on new ad partners, we've been able to over the last 2 weeks as a result of doing this. We have a lot of new names joining our auction, not necessarily new names in the industry, but new names to Mediavine. And most companies would be very risk averse right now, but this is going to allow us to bring more partners in the auction. So I don't even think BidShield is going to cost our publishers a penny. It's going to make them more money.
And that pool where all that additional money is being stored is going to be sitting there, making sure that we're secure, and then it'll go out. But again, guys, this is what I had to keep telling myself. This doesn't impact the money you're being paid for your ad impressions at all. It's the same money. It's the exact same bid. It's just depending upon the risk factor of that partner, it's added on top of that. And you'll still get the money. We're not keeping it. We're just putting it somewhere, right?
Right. Yeah. And full disclosure, this is why we're telling our publishers, but we've also told all of the ad partners. And so far, the reaction, you would think they would be freaking out. Why are you doing this? So far the reaction is, that's very clever. Thank you guys for doing that. Which you would think people that are getting adjusted wouldn't say that, but so far, yeah, like this is a clever solution to this problem. So no one's been unhappy by this.
And if you want to know where the pool is, what that pool is, what I'm picturing is a Scrooge McDuck pool. People are diving in. That's where that money is going. So there's a big Scrooge McDuck pool. We will pay that out eventually. Okay, comments. We have Ellen Folkman said, I'll be a Mediavine publisher on June 12th. Yay, can't wait. Making site improvements and making videos to hit the ground running. Yes, you said one of Eric's favorite words, that you're making videos. Haha. Michelle Price says, that's a fascinating concept. I like it. Lorraine Laddish says, that's so interesting from an entrepreneurial point of view, not just to know that the publishers will get paid anyway. Yes. Why we wanted to release these blog posts in tandem is that it's not just, we're not just saying we're going to pay you like we always have. We're telling you how we're making sure that that's going to happen no matter what. Dennis Chef D says it's like the gold reserve at Fort Knox. Yes, whichever analogy, whichever mental picture works for you. Okay, Pamela Frost says, has the page view requirement changed at all during this harder time to work with Mediavine? Eric?
No, so we have not raised nor lowered it. I think the only change that we've made so far is if publishers who are with Mediavine fall below the page view requirements or the session minimums here at Mediavine, we're not kicking anyone out if it was due to COVID-19 related traffic drops, which obviously, for example, travel bloggers right now, we can't expect them all to be able to maintain their minimums during this harsh time. So we are not enforcing it if you're already inside Mediavine.
Okay, so we had someone ask about advice for travel bloggers, and I want to circle back to that. There's a couple other things I want to talk about with respect to this kind of the state of the industry. The other thing I also wanted to talk about was we have a lot of fun talking about all the cool things that we're working on that will help publishers make more money. But first and foremost, our bread and butter is, Eric, tell us what that is, please.
I believe it's ads. We are an ad management company, so I'm going to go with ads, our bread and butter.
That's right. Good job. You answered that well. So since this whole COVID-19 thing has happened, our engineering team has pretty much been working around the clock to make up for the losses in ad revenue due to this global downturn. And I want to give some insight to our audience about what's been happening behind the scenes with the script wrapper, with our ad tech. And also, we don't talk about our ad tech that much because frankly, it's kind of boring to people that aren't named like Eric Hochberger or Eric Nolte or some of our other amazing engineers that are working back there, Seth Bicknell. And it's hard to talk about the ad tech in a way that isn't loaded with acronyms and make people's eyes glaze over, but that's what we're doing behind the scenes that are making sure we can make up as much as we can of this money. What they do is complex. So talk a little bit about some of that stuff, what we've been doing behind the scenes that's helping.
Yeah, I think it's funny. Some of our engineers felt this way. I think at our first conference in Google where we unveiled Create. Yep, that's where it was.
In California,
perfect.
Yeah.
In California. So Brian, who's now our director of engineering, I think he left my talk during that a little sad because I talked about all the stuff we're doing with ads, and then I mentioned Create, and everyone's like, "Wow, Create! This is going to be awesome." All the questions were about Create, and meanwhile, Brian's like, "Well, Brian is like one of the hardest working guys ever and worked so hard. He's built our video player basically almost freaking single-handedly, worked tirelessly. And yet the publishers obviously get more excited by Create, and rightfully so. Create is something you can feel, touch, and see. Ads just all happen in the background more magically, I guess, is probably the better way to look at it. From Automagically, exactly, the Disney one. So I can see it, that we definitely also kind of have moved to that perception. You and I talk more about Create, Trellis, and Grow than we do about ads. And that's because even prior to this live, when Jenny and I were waiting the 10 minutes before this thing starts, I started talking about an ad technology thing, her eyes glazed over. And so if Jenny is getting that reaction, who works at an ad management company, I can only imagine how most of our publishers feel. So yeah, unfortunately, our ad tech engineers are unsung heroes. Most of them come from non-ad tech backgrounds. In fact, I think all of them come from non-ad tech backgrounds, which is super interesting. They're all brilliant engineers who have figured out the ad space better than industry veterans. They are some of the smartest people I've ever met, and they are the hardest working people. And I'm sorry you guys will never get the cool recognition because it was awesome that you managed to get, our viewability up 1.5%. And that means everyone makes 1.5% more money. But
and it doesn't sound that exciting. It is though.
Right.
We're like, oh boy, viewability 1.5%.
Yeah, and I didn't pull that out of nowhere. That's actually a project we've been working on. And I know Bicknell has been working on like the side machine learning, Seth Bicknell, the side learning, like machine learning project, since you mentioned his name. And he's like, hey, would this be worth it if it would raise viewability like 3 to 4%? I'm like, heck yeah. This guy just dedicated weeks of learning machine learning in order to build this concept, debut it, and it's going to be a 3 to 4% viewability that most of our audience is not going to care about if I were to geek out about for the next hour. But that's the kind of stuff they're working on, and I don't know. I would love to talk about it for a full hour, but nobody's going to care. I could tell you about all the efforts we've been moving towards service server, and I want to do a blog post, and that's the one that made Jenny roll her eyes or gloss over. So we're not going to talk about it. But we're working on some really incredibly cool things here on the advertising side, from technology and from relationships. We also have Phil Bone, who has been on these lives before. And if you brought him on, he would geek out about advertising acronyms you don't care about. But he and his sales team work incredibly hard to get the advertisers to whitelist all of your sites, set up PMP deals. He's had a couple of blog posts on this stuff recently. Amazing partnerships he's working on. But again, we're not going to cover them because for the most part, you won't know these names and they don't mean that much. And I feel like a lot of people lose sight. Maybe Mediavine's losing sight because they work too hard on Create, Trellis, and Grow. I promise you not. Those 3 products exist solely in service of your ads. I think Create publishers have learned this. Create cards are so well optimized for ads that every single publisher that runs Create versus another recipe card makes more money. That's why we do Create. We do Create to help our ads perform better. The whole reason we're building Trellis, and we can talk more about Trellis, don't worry everyone, is because Trellis improves ad performance. That is ultimately what drives Mediavine to build this stuff. Sure, Eric is weirdly obsessed with page speed, and that is a lot of the motivating factor, but ultimately because these things are going to help our publishers' ad performance. We are first and foremost, and will always be, focused on publisher revenue. That is the most important thing here at Mediavine.
It all loops back to that. Like we're all about that base. We're all about that ad tech. Like that's what this is about. It's about the earnings. And the reason why you guys started making the products that we started making are not just because you were like, I think we'll have a really lucrative side business in WordPress plugins. That was not the way that came about. Why did we start creating these? Why did you decide? So, sorry, they're commenting on Phil Bone and I'm laughing really hard. I'm going to read it here in a second.
We'll get back to Phil. But yeah, no, why did we originally create, sorry, you used the word. Why did we originally build Create? We saw, first off, at the time, there was a big gap in what was being offered by recipe card plugins that were out there. Nobody was catering towards craft or how-to. At the time, they used to shove non-food into recipes, and that gets you a Google ban. So one of the first reasons we built this product was because we knew there was a how-to schema. We were the first plugin to build how-to schema. Now other plugins do it. That's great. But if Mediavine weren't around to do that, a large percentage of our bloggers who are craft and DIY and how-to bloggers in general didn't have a card. We brought that to the industry. Lists are also another thing. There's a schema type called item list, and it's been around for recipes. Again, the first one to build this was Create. We built this to innovate, but beyond that, we saw problems with things like jump to recipes. We've been able to solve all of these problems because we have Create. So I think it's not only in service of our publishers in terms of their ad performance, but also their search engine optimization and their site performance.
All the things. Okay, here we go. Okay, Sherry Smotherman Short said, I read the BidShield blog post right before I realized y'all were talking about this today. I used to work for an auto insurance company, and my first thought was that Mediavine invented insurance for ad networks. You answered my question. We'll get the entire bid, and the only amount that goes to BidShield is the extra. That's correct. Michelle Price says, we control kinda Create, Trellis, and Grow. We can't see and control ads as much. We're all just control freaks. I definitely appreciate what happens with ads so I can get more money. I mean, the whole point of Mediavine, for starters, was you don't need to be an ad tech expert to be a blogger. That's not something you have to learn. There's so much you do have to learn to be a successful content creator, and that's not one of the things you need to know about PMPs and DMPs and blah, 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 blah. All those things you don't have to know about. We know about those things. So we take care of that for you. Yay, we've got some love for the engineers. They're definitely not watching. Sherry's mother in short said, yay, Mediavine engineers. They've never seen live. Shasi Charles says, thank you, Mediavine ad techers. Hilda says, hats off to the Mediavine engineers. Veronica Prim says, everybody at Mediavine is amazing. Big thanks and love to the engineers too. Michelle Hall said, when my RPM went up because of that video player, and just by keeping on the footer ad last week, I love those ad developments. The Mediavine ad management development team rocks. Okay, Nino Armstrong Kilgore Marchetti. That is a lot of names, Nino. If one wanted to get a top-down site evaluation on how to improve revenue and ad performance, what do we need to do for that through Mediavine? Eric, that would be a nice segue to our new thing that we are going to talk about. Thank you, Nino.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about that. So thank you guys all for recognizing the ad tech engineers. That is awesome. Thank you guys.
Slow clap.
We'll slow clap for they're not listening, but we'll tell them all afterwards. Don't worry.
We'll tell them we talked about them.
They're busy working on ad tech, so it's fine.
Yes.
So if you want to get an audit, first and foremost, I think the best way is always just emailing publishers@mediavine.com. We have an amazing support team, award-winning, and we have specialized members on that team that focus on nothing but doing audits and finding out ways you can make more money. But a lot of what we try to do here, especially in the new dashboard, are health checks. Those health checks are all you need to know as a publisher of what you can do to improve your ad performance. That's the idea behind them, is this is the stuff that your side can control. Our job as your ad management company is to earn you top CPMs for your ad spots, but your job is to put those ad spots in the most engaging spots on your site so that you, in return, get good viewability, good click-through rates, good things that drive advertisers to keep coming back. There's certain things we can't do for you. We can, but you won't like if we place the ads everywhere, all over your site. We instead focus on, let's earn you the highest eCPM, the highest CPM, or the most money you're getting paid per ad. And it's your job to figure out how you can kind of spread out those ads throughout your page. Our technology does it for you, but you have to write almost for that good user experience in those ads. So we have a great blog series, Improve Your RPM, that kind of touches on all these things. And it shows you how you can use those health checks to make more money.
But in addition to that, we, in terms of getting more knowledge about how things are performing, about how posts are performing, about all of those things, we just had a new development come out. It's an open beta now. Let's talk about Dashboard 2.0 just a little bit.
Yeah, no, we are in love with the new dashboard here at Mediavine, and I think a lot of our publishers are. So we're calling it Dashboard 2.0. It's an open beta, as Jenny mentioned. There should be a banner at the top of your dashboard when you log in there. If there's not because you closed it, it's just dashboard-beta.mediavine.com. We can put it in here. Anyone who has a dashboard account automatically has a Dashboard 2.0 account.
You don't have to do anything.
No work. Just go over there and start using that as your dashboard, and know in the coming weeks, we're going to be switching everyone over to using that new dashboard because we've been getting incredible feedback from publishers that are using it and from our own support team. People may not know this, but our own support team uses our dashboard as well. They have a lot of other cool tools and access that you may not have because it's not important information to you. So they have a lot of back-end health checks, but in addition to that, they're basically using the same dashboard as you. So between the feedback from our pub support team and from our publishers, we think 2.0 is getting very close to being ready. It has some incredible new features like page level reporting that Jenny was alluding to. So now you can see how individual pages, your blog posts, your homepage, whatever it may be, whatever makes it into your top 100. We now track your top 100 pages to see how they're performing. And now you can see, okay, this post is making me a higher RPM. I can maybe promote it more, or this one's making me a lower RPM. Let me go look into why. We're gonna have a lot more guides and explanations into how you can work on individual posts and use that information to basically help your bottom line.
So yes, awesome. It's working. If you're using Dashboard 2.0, we're getting some people that are commenting and saying they love it. It looks amazing. It does look amazing. Thanks to our own Kat Donegan, who's been working on that for a while. But there's tons of information in there. That was just a quick little thing. Eric just sort of posted this week about page level reporting, talking about why that matters, why you should care. We posted that in the comments, but definitely look into that. The dashboard has so much going on, and there are so many great things with it. We can't talk about it all right now because that's a whole live on its own. And as a matter of fact, it is a whole live on its own. We love the TLDR overview that we just got right now, but there are so many features. We put out a blog post this week, plus we're doing a whole episode of Teal Talk next week on Dashboard 2.0. That's Thursday, May 7th. We're going to talk about that more at the end of the end of this live, but we'll have our director of support here. It's Heather. She's going to be with us. If you guys are able to start playing with the new dashboard this week, we highly recommend you do it so that you can kind of gather your questions, figure out what you want to know, figure out if you have some feature requests, because we're still in beta right now, but we're going to start talking about that more next week. But make sure you've liked Mediavine on Facebook so you can get updates and you can RSVP to be reminded about that live next week. I want to circle back just a little bit before we go into more on new developments in Dashboard 2.0 and accessibility. We have a lot of exciting things. But I want to talk about the initiative that we have, which is our PSA initiative. The impact of coronavirus, it's everywhere. It's hitting every aspect of our lives. Global economy, day-to-day life, we're seeing ripples all over the place. At Mediavine, we have implemented an initiative that came from our publishers to help provide accurate resources to people that are on Mediavine sites. So talk to us a little bit about that. Where did it come from? How can we get involved? How many Mediavine publishers are currently a part of it?
Yeah, so this all came from a publisher, Lawrence, Finding the Universe, right? I said his login might help this time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tomorrow.
So yeah, Lawrence came up with this awesome idea. We have, right now, we don't go for 100% fill, and we never have at Mediavine because we charge a floor or a minimum price for every ad impression on your site. That's to make sure we preserve the value of your ad inventory. Don't give it away for a penny, or else they'll pay a penny for it. So we have a minimum price for your ad impression. So what we would do in the past is just no ad would serve. It was as if that was never a spot where an ad could even go. It wouldn't be a blank space. It would just be collapsed, as it's called in the ad world. So what we did instead is, this is thanks to Lawrence's idea, let's instead serve PSAs, public service announcements, or non-paying ads in those spots instead. So we partnered with the UN partnership, and we launched a series of basically flatten the curve campaigns, viral campaigns. Now we are working with other groups, including Amobi, who is a ad buyer, to work on their COVID-19 resources. And we've partnered recently with Williams Sonoma, who has No Kid Hungry campaign that we're working with them on. So it's not just going to be the Mediavine PSAs anymore. You're now going to be running a series of PSAs through major partnerships that Mediavine is making. We think this is awesome that the entire ad community is coming together on these things, and Mediavine as a whole, with all of our publishers, represent one of the biggest spots of ad inventory. You'll see about this from Amobi if you look. I think we're only behind eBay, and that's because I'm looking, 1,352 of our publishers are running this right now. So if even more run, we're going to outperform eBay in terms of number of PSAs that are helping Amobi. And we don't even give all of these impressions to Amobi right now. We're splitting them up, and we're still almost as big as eBay combined. So please, if you haven't already, consider turning them on. You just go into ad settings, turn on PSAs, and you're done. No cost to you as a publisher. Mediavine is entirely paying the ad serving costs of the PSAs. So all you're giving up is basically where a spot would not have served an ad, now it's going to have a PSA.
Question though, in terms of all that reporting, which we're going to get into more with Dashboard 2.0, is this campaign going to impact our reports in the dashboard?
For a brief moment longer, they will be. So right now, they kind of mess with your fill rate. So previously, your fill rate in the dashboard would indicate how many paying impressions you had relative to the number of ad opportunities. Now the unpaid are going to make it look like you almost have 100% fill rate, which in turn will lower your CPM as a result, because you're putting in ads that aren't paying, and your CPM is just an approximate of how much overall your ads are earning you per impression or per 1,000 impressions. So they will temporarily lower it. But as part of Dashboard 2.0, we're going to be debuting basically the concept of only showing you a paid CPM and a paid fill rate. So very, very soon, Dashboard 2.0, even if you're running PSAs, you'll still have access to all the same reporting you've ever had, even if you're running them.
But it's not actually impacting earnings to run the PSA.
Sorry. No, that's just the reporting. Actual earnings, there's zero impact to you. So there was a little bit of a bug when we first launched them, and there was an impact. But as always, Mediavine, part of the Mediavine guarantee is if it's our mistake, we cover the costs. So we credited all of our publishers for that loss. And if anything, we make sure that we always pay a little bit extra so that nobody has ever once complained from one of our credits when we make a mistake. And that was the case with the PSAs. We hope you can forgive that. We promise you now they've been running for weeks since then with no hiccups. Run them, no impact to your RPMs, small little impact to your reporting abilities on CPMs and fill rates if you studied those, but don't worry, we're fixing those very shortly.
We run it on the Hollywood Gossip, so that's where we did all the testing, and we know that it's not impacting any earnings, so you're good on that. Okay, I'm gonna go back through all of these comments. We have so many. Okay, Michelle Palin said, this is nice. Me dropping all about that base is the best thing today, no trouble. Kimberly Wu says, we may not understand it all, but we do care and appreciate all the hard work and expertise. Cheers to your awesome staff. Ellen Folkman is a fan of the Go for Teal series. I love your articles. I've been reading them for a while now. Okay, Anita talking about the new dashboard. It looks so good. Lorraine said the new dashboard rocks. It's great for those of us with traffic from different countries. Mm-hmm. Sherry says, I love the new dashboard. I keep coming up with ideas of how to use the page level information to make more money. Shasi says, that is too cool. Okay, Nino says, those top 100 pages, are they tracked through the history of the site total or since we've been with Mediavine?
Great question. So every day we use your Google Analytics to pull on what your top 100 pages were for the previous day. And those are what we're tracking the revenue on. So we're going to look at your previous day's top 100. So over a long enough period of time, pages move in and out of your top 100. So you're going to be seeing not necessarily full data for the top 100 on your site, just top 100 per day. So when you add them up together, it might not equal the same revenue or the same number of, well, it won't equal the same traffic you're seeing in Google Analytics, because Google Analytics tracks all of your pages. We're only tracking your top 100. So it's what you would call a sampling, but really it's going to be very accurate within a small range or within those top 100 pages.
Michelle Palin said, and that all is covered in your blog post from this week about page level reporting. So read that for more details on that. Michelle Palin says, I love the new dashboard. I think the only thing I wish was different was if the individual page info was higher up on the dashboard, because that's something that is more helpful than the country data or mobile computer tablet info on a daily basis. But as someone that runs ads and doesn't want my readers to complain, I shouldn't complain about having to scroll a bit every day. Excellent point.
Have a jump to page level RPM button.
To page level RPM with a big flashing button. Elizabeth says, I love the new dashboard. It's awesome. I can't wait to learn more from you guys about how we can optimize the specific posts with lower RPMs. Love that. We had a bunch of love for the PSAs. That's great. Mirko says the PSAs are great. Turn them on, peeps. Yep. Dennis is on fire today. He says, I like big fill rates. I cannot lie. Okay. Question from Nathan Mensa. With PSA, wouldn't the person on your blog click out of the site? Is that an issue?
So every advertisement, you run the risk of someone clicking out of your site. So every advertisement at Mediavine, we open in a new window. So they don't, so your site still will stay on the previous tab. So of course, that's a risk you run with any ad, and that's your goal of running an ad. You want to send them off. Normally you get paid, and of course in the PSA, you're not getting paid. The way you're getting paid though is you're paying back to the world. That's what we're hoping that's the point of these PSAs. Whether you love the flatten the curve movement or whether you're no kid hungry movement, whatever it is, you are helping out someone by having this PSA.
And we have, if you check out our resources page where we're directing a lot of that, we have been collecting resources from all over the globe from different countries so people can have accurate information, go to places that, rather than some of the noise that's out there, this is actually reputable sites like the World Health Organization where you can get up to the minute information that is that's real news, not fake news. Okay, yesterday in the Facebook group, we had Tobias Oram from Diabetes Strong ask about website accessibility and closed caption for videos, which is a new thing that is coming with Dashboard 2.0, which we wanted to address just real quickly before we move on to everyone's favorite topic. So talk about the new features related to website accessibility in Dashboard 2.0, please.
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing that came in Dashboard 2.0 is the ability to upload closed caption files for your videos. So I know it's a big thing. If you have any spoken words inside of your videos right now, please use closed captioning files. You got to remember, one, the Mediavine video player is almost always muted by default. That's the Better Ad Standards experience. So the CBA, the Coalition for Better Ads, actually requires that we start it off muted if it's going to be autoplay. So a lot of your readers are going to want captions anyway if you have spoken word. But for your readers that are hearing impaired, they can't hear your words. You have to give them closed caption files. I know for a lot of ADA reasons, a lot of people are now suddenly hopping on this, but you should be doing it anyway. It's just best practice for your site. We mark them up properly in HTML5 track objects for the nerds out there. It's basically the best experience you can provide to your audio impaired readers, but also to places like Google that really want you to be able to mark your language up in this stuff. So if you have spoken word, do it. I hear a lot of people now, even in the Facebook group, are talking about background music. If you have background music, maybe you can just list, there's background music here. So that if nothing else, that person who can't hear you knows, yep, they're falling out. They're back. I know you hate
You're back. You're back.
So yeah, if someone can't hear, at least they know there's nothing for them to hear. At least let them know it's just background noise. So yeah, we think closed caption files are one of the best parts of Dashboard 2.0.
And we'll talk more about that next week. And you, Eric, promised, I believe, a blog post on the website accessibility features that we are adding in Dashboard 2.0. I will vote into that, Tobias, and everyone out there that's wondering. Okay, Nicole Johnson, our VP of support, says, PSA, please don't test your ads by clicking on them. That is bad news. Don't do that, guys. Don't click your own ads. Don't do that. Don't eat your own dog food in that way. Every once in a blue moon, I click one by accident and cringe when it happens. Ellen Folkman, we understand. It was an accident. Okay, so let's do it. Let's pivot to the topic we all know and love. Can anyone guess out there? What are we talking about? What is the thing that you know you've been waiting on? Okay, it is Trellis. We can't do it live without people asking about it, and we do have some exciting updates to share today, including a new logo. Guys, oh, there we go. Yay! Can you see it? That's the new logo. That is the new Trellis logo. What do you guys think? Pretty cool, huh? All right, Eric, tell us a little bit about all the things. How many sites live do we have, first of all?
Over 30 now. I think it's like 32 because the thing is we launch sites every day. So I lose track, but I know it was over 30 at the beginning of this week. So it is real. It does exist. People are running it right now. There are 30 sites running it in total, 30-something sites running it in total.
Okay, that's exciting. Over 30. Everyone saw it. Good. What do you think? Did you like it? We liked it. It was an arduous process to arrive at this logo, but we did arrive at it. Okay, Michelle James, she is feeding us up a nice softball. Can you talk about some of the benefits of Trellis, Eric?
Sure can. So I'm actually going to be having a blog post coming up soon to kind of talk about the state of where Trellis is now. I think people want an update, and including we can start revealing some of the stats we're seeing, some of the averages we're seeing from publishers that are running this. And I think that will probably tell you the benefits more than anything, basically what it's going to do to your bottom line. And we think it's pretty exciting. So a lot of people I've heard also asking, is it even worth waiting for Trellis at this point? Should I just install something like WP Rocket? I saw that in a group somewhere. Yes, Trellis is worth waiting for. And the reason why is because Trellis is doing things very differently than any other solution out there. I like to call things like WP Rocket a silver bullet. It's just your attempt at, I don't want to actually improve my page speed. Let me go slap a giant Band-Aid on it and hope that this runs faster. That's a good idea if you have no other resources you can do, but that's why we're introducing Trellis. Trellis actually fixes the core problems with page speed rather than just trying to slap a Band-Aid on them, which means it has a higher chance of actually improving your page speed more than just getting you a score. It's really making your site faster, which is going to make a bigger difference than just a fake score. It's going to improve everything about your site. Some numbers I can share is that the average site that has been running Trellis, and these are a wide gamut. Some of these sites are already optimized running things like WP Rocket. Some of them were just heinously slow and tried nothing and just waited for Trellis. But amongst that, right, no, we seriously had some that got like a 300% increase in speed. But a lot of them, their average increase is over 30%. And that is including sites that were already in the 90s in page speed insight, still go up by running Trellis. That's because nobody has ever released kind of a framework that just starts over from scratch and says, how do we do everything the right way? How would you develop a website in 2020 versus how we were developing websites in 2010 or whenever a lot of these other frameworks came out? So Trellis does things differently from the ground up, more money. We'll talk more about that in my upcoming blog post, but it improves your viewability, improves your impressions per session, and basically, therefore, will increase your RPM and will increase your long-term RPM. So traffic goes up. So far, the numbers have been crazy.
Okay, so we've had a bunch of people blowing up, as always. Okay, we have... Diana loves the logo. Great. Michelle Palin applied for the beta and is hoping to try it soon. Michelle Hall says, so jelly, series FOMO here. Nino says, will Mediavine publishers be required to switch to Trellis? Eric?
Well, when they see the amount of money, they're going to require themselves. No, we're not going to require as a company to make anyone move to
That's
Trellis.
that's not the marketing we're going with, please.
No,
we're not
right.
doing that.
Yeah, no, we would never require a publisher. Just like we don't require them to run Create today, we'll never require them to run Trellis.
No. Okay, Michelle Palin says, how about an update on that opt-in email pop-up thing?
Cannot wait. Stay tuned to an upcoming live. We have some really cool stuff coming to grow hopefully in the coming months, or maybe even before that. So there will be an update. That's all I can say.
But that's not related to Trellis. Those are different things.
Right.
Okay. Sue says, can you post links to some live Trellis site update or site users for us to preview? We're doing that. Shannon says, is there a list to get on to be a beta tester? Yes, there is. We can post that as well. Amy Cat says, is it difficult to switch from Genesis to Trellis?
So I think that's kind of the warning we always give. It really depends on what custom stuff you have on your theme. If you're just running a Genesis child theme out the box, you did no customization, it's pretty easy. You're just going to change themes. Right now, we're doing a white glove service for everyone. Anyone who's been put on the Trellis so far knows they're dealing with Matthew Howe, who's one of our support engineers, and he's been training up a team of support engineers at our company to basically walk you through the installation of Trellis on your site. We don't know if that's always going to be the way because that's not the most scalable of solutions, but so far it's been very smooth and easy for most of our publishers to move over. It's really going to come down to if you have a custom theme, you're probably going to have a lot more work. If you had an off-the-box shelf you just purchased off a website, you installed it, you ran it, you did minor customizations, you'll be fine.
He also only wears one white glove when he's doing all his work. That is a little known fact, but it is true. Nathan Mensa says, will there be plans to have Trellis support media publishing sites? Most seem to support personal brands as far as content arrangements layout.
So the thing is, right now, a lot of the sites you're going to be seeing linked to are actually just running the Trellis framework. They don't even have a child theme running, which is insane because nobody would just run the Genesis theme. But the Trellis theme itself is not bad looking. So we have, yeah, it's pretty. So we actually have publishers running just the theme framework right now. We introduced our first 2 child themes, I believe, this week to our publishers testing. So they're going to be running either Wisteria or Bamboo. And those 2 are both definitely designed towards content creators that typically make up Mediavine and not media publishers. Most of the Mediavine child themes you're probably going to see coming out in the next few months are going to be aimed towards our typical publisher. That's who Mediavine is designing child themes for. That does not mean Trellis is exclusive to our child themes. One of the things we're going to be doing is working with theme developers in the coming months. Actually, even sooner than that, we're going to be working with some theme developers to start testing out Trellis. What's it like to develop other child themes, third-party child themes on top of Trellis? And they can do whatever you want. If you want to pay a developer to build you a custom theme for your media company, absolutely. And we guarantee companies in the future will be building themes for our marketplace that will cater to non-typical Mediavine publishers.
But we're starting with our publishers. Sorry, right. Media companies.
That's where our resources are always dedicated towards.
Sorry about you. And there may be people wearing gloves that are different colors when they onboard you for that. It's hard to say what color all the gloves will be. Okay. Lindsay Jones says, my desktop speed is in high 90s, mobile is in the 40s. The 40s, no clue why it is such a big difference, but praying Trellis helps.
Yes. If you listen to our advice and you are willing to basically remove any of your plugins or third-party JavaScript that's slowing down your site, you'll be in the 90s, period. You're probably not going to be willing to remove everything because we have seen that even from the beta. So you'll still be in the 80s. We would love everyone to be in the upper 90s like we see some of our more successful sites that embrace the full Trellis mantra of like start over from scratch. If you're running Create and Grow, you're good to go. We're working with other plugins to see if they can optimize their speed as well. Even non-Create recipe card plugins we'll even be working with. Don't worry. We'll work with all the popular plugins if we can to get them all optimized.
But if we've learned anything is that bloggers love plugins. And so that's part of the catch here is that you've got to be able to let go of some of that. Okay. Rachel Ballard says, I'm dying to get Trellis. Jennifer Stewart says, hurry up so I don't have to pay for Nitro. Julia asked the magic question, when will you roll Trellis out to everyone?
So again, I know like people have used the word that like Trellis is delayed, but it's not. We have never given a release date. Trellis is ready when Trellis is ready. I don't think that if you guys just all wanted to run the same base core theme framework and run no plugins, you could all run it tomorrow. But I don't think that's the Trellis that everyone wants. Trellis they want it to work with their plugins. They want a variety of child themes to choose from. They want custom themes. They want everything that can't happen unless we do it organically. I like to think that Trellis is growing the way that Mediavine grew. There's 30 publishers now running it. Mediavine had 30 publishers for quite a while before we grew. It's the organic growth. It's going to lead to a better Trellis for everyone.
Fantastic. Lindsay said again, yes, I do not know how, but yes, she would love that advice. We will be giving you that advice. We're working on it. Mm-hmm. It's happening. We promise. Okay. I think we have time for one more question. We've been talking for a while here. Okay. But our product engineering team is not only working on Trellis. They are working on other things. We've had some pretty awesome things happening with Create. We were talking about Create earlier, why we started creating Create. What is the story? We had some jump to recipe updates.
Yes, we're actually able to. So here's another example of how our kind of plugins support our ads or in service of. We were able to take some of the code that we built for Create and bring it over to plugins such as WP Tasty and WP Recipe Maker to give the same experience that Create has for Jump to Recipe. Well, not the exact same, but some of the better experience. So one of the things we've heard complaints from is if you're using a third-party recipe card plugin and you're running Mediavine ads, when you click Jump to Recipe, ads will lazy load or appear as you're scrolling. And sometimes that means you won't end up exactly at the card. You may have ended up a little before, a little after, and that's because ads were coming into view. So what we do now is when you click Jump to Recipe, we disable those ads from loading. It's better for your viewability. There's no reason to show an ad that no one will ever see. It hurts your site's viewability, it hurts your earning income potential in the future, and it ruins the user experience. So we now have used Create technology inside of our script wrapper to make a much smoother Jump to Recipe experience for WPRM and WP Tasty.
That is super exciting. Okay, we had so many things today. We had a lot of stuff to talk about. I kind of want to, do you want to overview? Do you want to do the overview of everything we talked about today, Eric? Do you remember everything we talked about?
That's going to have to be a Jenny special right there.
Okay. All right. Is there anything else super exciting coming up that we're going to be talking about other than the thing that made my eyes glaze over before we started today? Are there any other exciting things you can tease? I have a feeling you're going to be back next week to talk about Dashboard 2.0 with Heather, who's our Director of Publisher Support. So you guys try out the dashboard, switch over. You don't have to. It's not manual right now, but switch over voluntarily so you can gather some questions up to be able to talk to us next week, Thursday, May 7th. We'll be talking Dashboard 2.0, ways to use it to maximize your earnings today. Other things we talked about today are guarantees via Tommy Boy and why Mediavine is independently owned and operated, and we will pay you. And it's a safety net that we put in place, which is BidShield. We'll be sending out more those blog posts so you guys can look at them, review them on your own time, and always come to us if you have questions. Publishers@mediavine.com. If you have any questions about the way we do things, that's what we're here for. Anything, Trellis is trucking along. You can still sign up for the beta. We have 30 plus sites on there now. We shared some of those links. What else did we talk about? We talked about our engineers who are amazing and working on ad tech behind the scenes all the time. Machine learning to give us better viewability via Seth Bicknell, one of our engineers. And that was all the things we talked about. Eric, it has been a delight to have you on again today. It was a lot. We talked about a lot of things. It was pretty exciting. Thank you guys. If you have questions for us, again, email in publishers@mediavine.com. We'll pay you, basically, was the synopsis of everything. If I had to put it all in a nutshell, we'll pay you. Thanks, Eric. Bye, everybody.